Your toe catches the curb. Your weight is already moving forward. The ground is tilting up toward you. And you have about half of 1 second before you either catch yourself or you go down hard on the concrete. Freeze it right there. In that half second, something inside you has to answer 3 questions at once. And it has to get all 3 right. Where is the ground? Really? How far am I already leaning? Which foot has to fire out ahead of me to stop this? Here is the part almost nobody thinks about. The thing answering those questions is not your feet. It is your brain. And your brain cannot see the floor. It has no eyes down there. It has to build a picture of the ground out of tiny messages sent up from the soles of your feet. And it has to build that picture and act on it before you can even think the word fall. Most of the time, you win. Your other foot plants itself out in front of you. The world settles back down. And you walk on with your heart beating a little quick. You never once realize how close that was, or how much just happened inside you to save it. Let me be straight with you from the very first minute, because this subject brings out a lot of nonsense. Shoes did not damage your brain. Nobody is going to tell you to throw out your sneakers. But after decades of soft, smooth, predictable ground under your feet, your brain has quietly been working harder than it used to. Just to keep you standing up. That is the real story. And by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly how much is packed into one ordinary step. And you will never look at a curb the same way again. To pull off that catch in the parking lot, your brain leans on 3 sources that tell it where your body is in space. Your eyes, watching the world. Your inner ears, feeling your head tip and turn, and the soles of your feet, pressed against the ground, along with the ankles and joints just above them. 3 witnesses, all reporting at the same time. But look at where those witnesses are standing. Your eyes are up near your face, guessing at the floor from a distance. Your inner ears feel motion, but they never touch the earth at all. Only one witness is actually down there, in contact with the real surface, in real time. The soles of your feet are your reporter on the ground. Everything else is testimony from across the room. So here is the question this whole video is going to answer. And I am not going to make you wait until the end to hear it. What happens to a brain when the one reporter standing on the actual ground starts sending back reports that are harder and harder to read? It does not quit. It has a body to keep upright. It finds another way. And the way it finds is the reason a curb at your age is a very different thing than a curb was at 25. We all learn to think of feet as the wrong thing. We think of them as a platform, a pair of stands that hold the body up, get tired, and need a decent pair of shoes. All true, and all beside the point. Because every step you take is really a report going upstairs. Push off, and the bottom of your foot files it, where the weight is landing. Whether the surface is hard tile or soft carpet, whether it is flat or tilted or starting to slip. Thousands of these a minute, all day long, and you have never had to open a single one. Try it right now, sitting where you are. Press your big toe down into the floor. Then ease off. You knew exactly how hard you pushed. You knew whether the floor was solid or giving. You knew all of that without looking. Without deciding to. Without any effort at all. That line is open this very second. Underneath this sentence. Scientists have leaned on that line in the lab. And it holds up. When they numb the bottom of the foot, or cool it, or lay a textured surface under it. They can watch a person's walk change and watch the muscles in the leg fire differently and answer. The feet are not just carrying you across the room. They are steering, quietly, through that stream of information. Turn the information down, and the steering gets shakier. And this is why it matters so much for keeping you upright. Your brain does not hold you steady by knowing that you are standing straight. Standing straight is not a fact. It is a fight. Every second you are on your feet, you are actually falling in tiny amounts, in every direction, and catching yourself in tiny amounts, over and over, so smoothly that you feel like a statue. The report coming up from your feet is what makes that fight invisible. The clearer it is, the sooner your brain feels the lean starting, and the smaller the correction it has to make. You never notice, because it fixed the problem while the problem was still nothing. Now blur that report a little. Your brain feels the lean a beat later. The correction comes late, so it has to be bigger. On a good day, on a flat, bright floor, you will never know the difference. The trouble only shows up at the edges, in the dark, on the stairs, at the curb. Here is the strange part. Though, that report from your feet never actually shut off. It is still coming in. Right now. As strong as your body can send it. Nobody walked up and cut the line. What happened instead was slower and quieter than that. Over the course of a whole life, layer after layer settled in between the bottom of your foot and the ground. And each one had a little less to say than the ground itself. A little softer, a little smoother, a little more the same. And the strangest thing is that you chose almost none of it on purpose. You just did what everybody around you was doing. You put on shoes. Let me say something good about shoes first. Because I mean it. And because everything after this depends on you trusting that I am being fair. Shoes are one of the best deals your body ever got. They keep your feet off frozen ground and burning pavement. They stop the broken glass in the parking lot, the nail in the board, the thorn in the yard. For most of human history, a bad cut on the sole of your foot was the kind of thing that could turn serious and kill you. Shoes made that rare. Nobody in their right mind is asking you to give that up. But every layer of protection is a trade. The moment you put something between the sole of your foot and the world has to speak through that something. And the softer and thicker you make it, the more the fine detail of the ground gets smoothed away before it ever reaches you. A deep, cushioned, pillowy sole is wonderful at soaking up a hard landing. It also softens the finer texture of whatever you are walking on. Your foot presses down and feels the foam, not the grain of the sidewalk underneath it. The report still goes upstairs. It just carries a little less. And here is a piece of history most people never tie back to their own 2 feet. For most of your life, a whole industry has been chasing one word: soft. Back around 1971, a track coach named Bill Bowerman was messing around in his kitchen, and he poured rubber into his wife's waffle iron to see what kind of grip that pattern would give a running shoe. That batter became the waffle sole. And it helped kick off the running boom that swept America through the 1970s. Now, the waffle iron was about grip, not cushion. So let me be careful here. That one shoe did not change anybody's brain, but it sits right at the front of a long parade. Because the decades that followed turned into a race. And the prize everyone was chasing was more padding, thicker heels, softer foam, more bounce. 55 years later, a lot of us walk around on what are basically little mattresses strapped to our feet, and we call the softest ones the good ones. Now, before you swear off shoes and go march barefoot around the backyard, stop. Because this is exactly where the internet gets it wrong. And I promised you a straight story. Barefoot is not automatically better. And past a certain age, it can be worse. In older folks, walking around the house barefoot or in socks tends to raise the odds of a slip, not lower them. A good, well-fitted shoe with a firm grip can make an older person steadier, not shakier. Researchers have even put younger people on balance tests in regular shoes against bare feet and found the shoes did not meaningfully hurt their balance at all. And the body is cleverer about this than the barefoot crowd lets on. The thick natural callus that builds up on a bare sole protects the foot without deadening its feel for the ground the way a foam slab does. So the villain here was never the shoe by itself. If there is a villain at all, it is sameness. And that is the part I really want to land. Because shoes are only one layer in the stack. Look at where your feet actually spend their days now. Flat floors, smooth sidewalks, carpet, office tile, the gas pedal and the brake. Think about the last time the bottom of your foot met something genuinely uneven and had to work it out. A creek bed, a gravel lane, a rocky trail. For a lot of us, the honest answer is years. We paved the world flat. Then we covered our feet. Then we drove instead of walked. And every one of those was a small good thing that added up to one quiet big thing. The ground stopped teaching. And then age leans in from the other side. This part is just biology. And it comes for nearly everybody. As the years stack up, the soles of the feet get less sensitive. The signal has to be a little stronger now before the nervous system clearly picks it up. So the report was already getting thinner because of what you stand on all day. And now the microphone itself is getting old. Same massage, fainter, from two directions at once. So there is no single guilty party here. There is a drift. Over decades, the ground under you slowly ran out of things to say. Partly because of your shoes. Partly because of the flat, smooth world you live in. Partly because you moved less over rough places. And partly just because you got older. Put it all together. And the report coming up from your feet grew thinner year by year. So gradually you never heard a word go missing. But somebody heard it. Because when the news from downstairs gets thin, the work does not disappear. It goes straight up. To the one part of you that refuses to let you fall. When the reporter on the ground starts filing a thinner story, your brain does not fold up the paper and quit. It has one job it will never walk away from, which is keeping you off the floor. So, it does the smart thing. The thing any good operation does when one source goes quiet. It stops trusting that source so much, and it leans harder on the ones still coming in clear. It leans on your eyes, and it leans on your attention. Watch what that looks like in a real life, because you have probably already lived it without putting a name to it. On a bright, flat hallway, you walk the way you always have, easy and upright, not a thought in your head. Then the sun goes down and the room goes dim, and all of a sudden you are moving a little slower, a little more careful. That is your brain losing your eyes and reaching down for your feet. And finding your feet do not offer up quite as much as they used to. Stairs. You catch yourself looking down at them now, when you never used to look. Rough ground pulls your gaze to the floor. And when a friend steps up beside you and starts talking, you slow down without meaning to. Because your eyes and your focus are already busy doing a job your feet used to handle for free. Now let me show you the sharpest piece of this whole thing. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Doctors who work with older patients noticed something years ago, and they built a quiet little test around it. They walk beside a person, and they start a conversation. And they watch what the feet do. Because some people, the moment the talking gets going, come to a full stop to answer. They physically stop walking in order to speak. And in the research, the people who stop walking when they start talking have turned out to be at a higher risk of falling in the months that follow. Sit with what that means. Talking and walking at the same time has become too much to carry at once. Walking is now taking up so much room in the mind that there is no space left over for a sentence. The feet went so quiet that the brain had to grab the wheel with both hands. And now there is nothing left for a conversation. That right there is the whole point of this video. Standing out in the open. Walking stopped being something the body does on its own and became something the brain has to spend itself on. And scientists can actually watch it happen. Put sensors on the head and measure the brain while a person walks. And older adults with poorer feeling in their feet light up the front of the brain. The thinking and planning and concentrating part. The same part you balance your checkbook with. Just across the room. Walking starts borrowing from the very account you use to focus. And when researchers boost the signal coming up from the feet by putting a textured surface under them, some of that borrowing eases back off, and the front of the brain gets to rest a little. So here is the honest bottom line. And it is not scary. It is just true. Your brain did not forget how to walk. It started spending more attention to make up for the information your feet stopped delivering as clearly. Nothing broke in there. Nothing rotted. The job just quietly got more expensive. And you have been paying the bill for years without ever seeing the statement. Now go back to that parking lot. Go back to your toe, catching the curb, and the ground tilting up. And that half second where everything has to go right. You understand now why that half second is a bigger deal than it was when you were young. And it is not only that the legs got weaker, though they might have. It is that your margin got thin. The news from your feet comes in a little late. So your brain feels the fall a little late. So the catch has less time to happen. And that sliver of time is the whole distance between a stumble you laugh off and a fall you remember. The curb did not change. The room you had to react to it did. So that is the situation. Decades of soft, smooth, flat, easy ground. A body that got older along the way. And a brain quietly picking up the slack the whole time. If I stopped right there, it would sound like a sentence handed down from a judge. It is not one. And here is the good news I have been holding on to. Because it changes how you should feel walking out of here. The feet answer back. This part of the body is not a one-way street. Give the feet real work to do again. And the muscles get stronger and the control comes back. And for a lot of people, the sense of steadiness improves along with it. Nobody is promising to turn old feet back into young ones. What you can do is keep a good line open a while longer. And hand your brain a little less to worry about every time you stand up. So let me give you the real ones. The things that actually move the needle. The first one is the simplest. And people skip it because it sounds too small. Give your feet something to do besides sit inside a shoe. For years they have been held still on flat ground. And a part of the body that never gets used goes quiet. So wake it up. Sitting in your chair, press your toes into the floor and lift your heels. Then set them down and lift just your toes. Spread your toes apart like a fan and let them go. Roll a tennis ball back and forth under your arch while the television is on. None of that is exercise in the way you dread the word. It is reminding a part of your body that it is still allowed to move and feel. Feet that get used send a clearer report. And a clearer report is an easier job upstairs. The second one is variety. And this is where you have to be careful. So, hear me on it. Your feet have forgotten what different ground feels like. And you can give some of that back. But you do it where it is safe. If you are steady on your feet, a barefoot walk across your own lawn on a warm afternoon wakes up. Sensations a flat floor never asks for. If your balance is not what it was, you do not go chasing uneven ground out in the open. You stand beside a kitchen counter you can put a hand on, solid and waiting. And you let your feet feel a little variety with a wall of support right there. The point is never to test yourself near a fall. The point is to give the brain new information with something solid to hold. The third one is the shoes themselves. Because the answer was never fewer shoes. It was the right ones. You want a shoe that fits. That holds your heel firmly instead of sloppily. That has a sole with real grip. that does not pinch your toes into a point. A shoe like that makes you steadier. And steadier is the entire goal. This was never about punishing your feet with hard soles or thin soles. It is about letting the shoe do its protecting job without drowning out every last thing the ground is trying to say. And now the most important thing I will tell you in this whole video. So please stay with me for one more breath. Do not take all of this and suddenly go minimalist. Do not toss your supportive shoes and start marching around in those thin barefoot sneakers because a video got you excited about feeling the ground. If you are older, if you have diabetes, if you have any numbness or nerve trouble in your feet, if you have fallen before or you feel unsteady on your feet, this is not a do-it-yourself project. That is the moment to talk to your doctor or a physical therapist. Changing too much, too fast, before the feet and the legs have had time to adjust, is exactly how people get hurt. Doing it slowly, with the right person guiding you, is how you get the good part without the risk. So think about that parking lot one more time. The curb you did not see. The ground tilting up. That half second where your body throws a foot out ahead of you and saves itself before the fear even arrives. The next time it happens to you, and it will, you are going to know something you did not know an hour ago. You are going to know that it was not luck. And it was not really your feet. It was your brain, reading the ground through them, doing the math in the dark, and catching you. It has been doing that quietly your whole life. The least you can do is give it a little more to work with.